Alright, the topic was my feeling like a boy cropping up as an issue periodically, even when I was actively suppressing those feelings. It just kind of came out, and it was things that I just naturally did, and I was not at all actively thinking I'm doing this because I want to be a boy. It's just what I did. One example, when I was dating the last guy that I dated, and it was also a video game example. There's a game called Sims Online. Plenty of you probably played it. I was always a boy on Sims Online, and I was so happy when other people thought that I was a boy on that game. I played that game for a few years, and when I started it, obviously, I wasn't dating anybody, I was too young. But I was still playing it when I had that boyfriend around 13, 14 years old, something like that. Well, I guess I had the one boyfriend previous to that. Anyway, trying to keep my story straight. Anyway, when I first started playing it, I was single. I wasn't dating anyone. I wasn't interested in dating anyone. I ended up with my last boyfriend sometime while I was playing the game. He got a copy. He started playing it with me. He makes a character. He got very angry when he found out that I was a boy. He was not cool with us doing anything on the game because it made him look gay. Surprisingly, thinking back on it now, I'm surprised. I didn't really care about doing stuff with him on my boy character. But he made me go out and special make a girl character so that I could interact with him on the game as a girl. And that's when he would want to do all of the weird, romantic things that you can do on Sims. And I just had the biggest aversion to it. I thought it was funny on the boy character, but on the girl character, I just wanted nothing to do with it. And it wasn't at all because I was actively in the front of my mind thinking, I don't feel comfortable identifying as a female. Wasn't furthest thing from my mind, I was not thinking that at all. I don't know. It was just how I was, is all that I can tell you and explain to you. Now, I had a best friend at the time who I eventually developed feelings for again. That's a reoccurring pattern in my life. Of course, who was a female, and I had much deeper feelings for her than I did for the guy, but the guy found me more attractive of the two because all three of us were actually friends. He found me more attractive than the other girl, and he asked me out by badgering me for like 4 hours. And I was honestly much more interested in my female friend. And that's kind of how our relationship dissolved, was by me revealing, I'm not actually into you, I'm into our mutual female friend. She already at the time was kind of, now I don't think she will admit this, but she was at the time kind of dabbling in between boys and girls. She hadn't dated anybody, but she had mixed feelings about it. But I had to explain that part because that particular friend ended up being, that female friend ended up being how I really found out that I was trans. She, a couple years later, started dating a person who identified as trans, and it was really one of the first things, or one of the first times I had ever heard about it since I was an adult. Now, I will say that I had had a couple of glimpses about it on things like Jerry Springer. And that was another one of those little red flags growing up, where I would make jokes and like, oh, I could do this, that, and the third and get away with it because I could just change my sex and move away and no one would ever find me again. And I was just perfectly content with that. Again, it wasn't really one of those things where I was actively thinking I wanted to be a boy. It's just one of those oddball traits about me. I said it more than a dozen times growing up. Anyway, that prior to her dating this person who identified as trans, that was really the only exposure I had had to trans people before this, was the 2 or 3 times that I had saw a whole 4 or 5 minutes of Jerry Springer where there was a sex change episode, and then my parents would very quickly either change the channel or escort us out of the room. But that was just one more of those little red flags throughout my life. So when one of my best friends started dating somebody who was trans, she was explaining it to me, and she gave me some YouTube videos to watch, and that first couple of YouTube videos turned into a few dozen YouTube videos, which turned into a few hundred YouTube videos, which turned into well over 1,000 YouTube videos before I was really sitting there being like, oh yeah, the average person probably would have stopped at them first 2, wouldn't they? I think I might be trans too. And that was kind of like my eureka moment, because I was kind of obsessed with it for the next few months, and really kind of coming to terms with my identity, because it took me a really long time. I educated myself massively, and I watched thousands of YouTube videos, but I still wasn't quite comfortable coming out and saying, yes, 100% I'm transgender. I identified as genderqueer for quite a while, and kind of tried to play the in-between card, or the androgynous, or one way or the other, flip-flop, I don't know what you want to call it. But there was also a long time and period of trying to unbrainwash myself, because it took me a couple of years that I was identifying as genderqueer to realize that almost anything feminine about myself that I wanted to hold on to or keep, or like that really was some kind of a female identity, was things that other people liked about me, not necessarily anything that I liked about myself and wanted to keep. And so, bit by bit, as I threw away pieces of my female identity that I did not like, whether somebody else liked them or not, I finally came to terms with the fact that I had a male identity. I wasn't really an in-between, or an androgynous, or agender, or anything other than just a plain normal male. That's just, it took a while because of what other people would put on me. What girlfriends would put on me, what my family would put on me, what people in general would put on me. Girlfriends would say, oh, but I love your chest. Oh, you had such a nice name. You had such long, pretty hair. You're such a strong, independent woman. You were such a good example of a strong, independent woman. A good example for the lesbian community. A good example for women in general. People thought I was turning my back on the female community, crap like that. I've got to wrap this up because my thing is about to stop recording on me. So I guess part 3 is coming up. All right, hold on.